Greek philosopher named Heraclitus once said, "The only constant in the universe is change." Change is constantly happening in this world, whether it be minor or major. That leads us to the question, what causes these changes? What conditions can spark dramatic change on a societal and individual level? Numerous online sources and literature such as Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe, Night by Elie Wiesel, and Frankenstein by Mary Shelley can help us prove why these conditions can spark dramatic change.
Our group claim is that on societal and individual level, dramatic change is created by the same conditions. Some of the major conditions that spark dramatic change are the introduction of new ideas and when there is dissatisfaction with the current conditions within a society or an individual's life.
The introduction of new ideas causes dramatic change in an individual and society because it changes their behaviors, needs, and goals. But these ideas can only be successful at creating dramatic change only if they are radically different than those previously accepted. Recently in our society, many social changes have been taking place. Frida Gittes, in a special to CNN, claims that the United States is on the cusp of social change. Changes such as gun laws, which would limit the use of firearms, same-sex marriage, and other tax reforms. Each of these were caused by a person or group of people who feel like they're being treated unfairly or they feel insecure about something. These new ideas started somewhere, and they gained popularity as time progressed and as society was informed. The constant creation of new cultural, political, and economic norms, as well as dramatic events like 9/11 and the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting, are the reasons for the creation of new ideas which could potentially cause dramatic change. Similarly, Len Traubman claims that once an idea is started, it slowly gains more popularity. He says there is a point where an idea gets accepted by only a few people. Once it hits this point, it becomes unstoppable due to modern technology and communication. An idea can start here, and only a few people know about it. But as time progresses, more people will be informed on this idea and will spread it to other people. It hits a point where it spreads so quickly it becomes impossible to stop. It eventually becomes common knowledge and affects society dramatically. We can see how the introduction of new ideas affects an individual in the book Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. In the book, the monster, a hideous creature made from miscellaneous body parts created by Victor Frankenstein, becomes abandoned by his creator. He eventually runs out into the forest and begins to learn new things. The introduction of new ideas comes from discovery. As the monster forages and explores, he learns about light and dark, hot and cold, and hunger and thirst. These ideas shape the monster's way of understanding this new world. He later hides in a small hut next to a shack where some peasants live. As the peasants teach one another, the monster learns language, social structure, and human history. The monster eventually uses his knowledge to try to communicate peacefully with other humans, but he's unsuccessful. He turns his rejection into anger and violence, causing numerous deaths of Victor Frankenstein's family and friends. This clearly indicates how the introduction of new ideas can affect an individual with dramatic change. When the monster learns these new things, it opens up the world to him. He can now communicate and express his ideas. But his outside appearance causes external conflict, which makes him lonely and eventually enraged. The introduction of those ideas affected the monster negatively. The expansion of knowledge resulted in death and destruction. In another document by Tim Wu, a reporter for TNW News, he claims that the introduction of new ideas through technology can cause dramatic change on a societal and individual level. In his document, he explains this long-term study done between the 1950s and the 1990s in a village south of the Hudson Bay. The village of OG Creek consists of about 30,000 people, and they are all active in daily life, and some even walking up to 100 kilometers on a normal day. They are cut off from modern technology and don't even have electricity. Some scientists have wrote of their ingenuity, courage, and self-sacrifice. And in the 1960s, new technology like electricity and combustion engines were introduced, which resulted in the positive effect of no longer having winter starvations. As the study continued for many more years, The arrival of new technologies caused a massive increase in morbid obesity, heart disease, and type 2 diabetes, which affected 40% of the population. This was very different than earlier decades. This dramatic change was caused by the introduction of new technologies and ideas that followed them. Technology like the internet, television, and radio introduced new ideas which shaped the minds of the inhabitants and the way they acted. Tim Wu's study shows how the introduction of new ideas can affect a society. Similarly, we can see this happen in the book Night by Elie Wiesel. The book was written to show the events of World War II and the memories of a Jew named Eli, who was in the ghetto and the concentration camps. During World War II, the leader of the Nazi Party, Adolf Hitler, heavily pushed the idea of Jews being subordinate to all other races. In the book, we can see the diffusion of these ideas. Many of the Polish and non-Jewish people in Germany greatly discriminated the Jews. The dramatic change in this case is the active concentration and eradication of all Jews in Nazi Germany and the allying countries. In another document by Drew Olenoff, he claims that technology can cause great social change. Things like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter have caused an increase in the amount of communication between individuals. Similarly, in Things Fall Apart, new technology like books and school systems were introduced by the white men, which dramatically changed the evil society.
An individual's discontent or feelings of unhappiness that cause change for them as a person is directly related to societal change. This is because a society is made up of individuals, and their ideas may be common and spread quickly, causing a spark from one person into the entire society.
In Things Fall Apart, you can see how society and individual change is related. As Okonkwo changes, he also tries to change his society. Also in Night, you can see how the German community is related to the individual, as they are all dissatisfied and work together to get rid of the Jews. In Night, you can see how the society and individual are related through the Jewish community, and how they all go through the same thing, but they are also affected as individuals as a whole overall.
In the document written by Samuel Onwar, he writes, "The human society is the extension of the individual. Therefore, if we really want a radically changed world, we need to then change individually." We are saying that by when we as individuals are unhappy or unsatisfied with our lives, that we search to make it better, and as individuals we control society, and in turn society is controlled by us. In the second document, written by Bonnie Koenig, she states that as a culture and individuals, we will always lean towards change. The reason why we do this is so that we can help others and eventually create a better society for ourselves. Since our society can always be improved upon and that there will always be problems, we will always strive and go towards change, and it will be inevitable. The third document by Shelley Shaw, she views social change as a succession of differences in time within a persisting identity. She focuses on how this change in society is caused by the change in culture. This change in culture is caused by the changing individuals that eventually diffuse and change the entire society.
We can see this idea in the book Things Fall Apart. When the white men established themselves in Okonkwo's village, they began to convert the native people to Christianity. This is the changing of individuals, which in turn causes a cultural shift in religion to Christianity, and eventually this leads to dramatic social change.
In the fourth document, written by Rosabeth Moss Cantor, she states reasons why people resist change. She says people are weary of change and uncertain about what the future holds, and they find it scary, and therefore people will resist change. Even when they are unhappy, there is a chance that it could become worse as it changes, and that makes people not want the change.
My claim is that a strong condition that will help spark change in society or within an individual's life is a dissatisfaction with current conditions or situations. One document that I found that discussed this idea very well was Eli's conditions for change. He talked about that one of the main conditions for change is dissatisfaction. If someone didn't like something or wasn't content with something how it was, they would strive to change it. This worked within society or with an individual's life. In society, they would work together to try to change something that they didn't like together, or an individual would work to change something within their own life. This idea of dissatisfaction leading to change works really well in the book Frankenstein. As you can see, the monster is dissatisfied with how society views him and about his current conditions. So he tries to get Dr. Frankenstein to create a wife for him, so he could be happy and not unsatisfied. Same in the book Things Fall Apart. You could see how Okonkwo isn't satisfied with the new ways and traditions that the white men have brought, so he tries to get his society to work together to try to stop these conditions and tries to change his society back to the way it was. One example that you can see shows dramatic change, and the conditions that started are in the Arab Spring.
Several bad puns later.
You can see Power talk about this in his article. People are dissatisfied with their current conditions, and so they strive to change it and make it a better society for themselves and their children. Connecting to these ideas, you can see how Adolf Hitler is dissatisfied with conditions in German society, so he tries to eradicate all the things he doesn't like the Jews. You see how dissatisfaction pushes people for something better or newer. They aren't always dissatisfied with their current conditions, but just would rather have something better. You can see this idea in the article on Change in Society, how people change over time with new technologies and ideas, and there's a growing population with new people coming with new ideas and innovations. And they're all pushing for a change in society and for a better world than they already have. Although dissatisfaction is a major condition that creates change, it isn't the main one. There's a lot of conditions that help create change. Kotler talks about that in his article. He says that no one could really know why something changes. They could analyze and try to give insight into why, but overall, sometimes it's a collective things that change them over time. Sometimes it's one dramatic event, or sometimes it's just a slow change over time. No one could really tell, and although dissatisfaction could play a role in it, but there's a lot of other conditions like the introduction of new ideas and other conditions such as motivation. But overall, no one could really pinpoint a direct reason for change.
Here's a psychoanalysis of Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. We're going to analyze the two main characters, Dr. Frankenstein and his monster. Through a psychoanalytical lens, we can see that the monster is our unconscious desires, and he is also the darkest form of human nature. Throughout the book, the creature stalks his creator. We can analyze this as our own unconscious stalking us and ready to attack, and cause us to do things that we wouldn't normally do. The monster can also be analyzed as the darkest form of human nature. The monster doesn't start as a bad guy, but through his early experiences in his life, he becomes bad. This is one major point in psychoanalysis. One's early experiences will unconsciously affect their decisions later in life. But what about Dr. Frankenstein? How can we analyze him through a psychoanalytical lens?
In the book Frankenstein, you can see how Dr. Frankenstein evolves over time. In the beginning of the book, as a child, you can see how he's very interested in science. This is because of his father's push for him to be educated. Later, though, this leads to him to have a huge ego and push for the creation of the monster. However, after he creates the monster, he isn't satisfied with it and becomes depressed because he realizes he has put all his life's work into one achievement and has pushed off so many other things in his life, like his family.